right. I am Sergeant Adam Sherman, and welcome back to another episode of Breaking and Adventuring, a look inside the Adams County Sheriff's Office and beyond. And so I'm here with my 16 years plus of experience, and we're going to just dive into different topics and see what we can find and dig up and some cool, interesting stories. So for today, we've got two of our newest family members. We have some of our academy recruits. So we have Recruit Jimenez and Recruit Myers here just to talk a little bit about their experiences, what led them to this point, joining the sheriff's office, and then what they've experienced so far, then where they're looking to go a little bit beyond that. So first, we'll play a little game called Who Are You? So
right. Sounds fun.
So whoever wants to start, but yeah, just tell us, like a little elevator speech about just who you are and what brought you to this point.
So I'll go first.
Right.
So my name's Joseph Jimenez, Recruit Jimenez, if we're being super formal. Before I joined the sheriff's office, I did 10 years in the Marine Corps from about 2010 to 2020. Went to school for a little bit. Still had that desire to do, serve, get back to my community. I have a family history of law enforcement. My grandfather was a state trooper in New Jersey for 30 years. My brother was Orange County Sheriff's Office for about 6 years in Florida before he went federal,
Nice.
HSI. So it's always been something that I've looked into and have had family history of.
Gotcha. Did you have any family ties to Orlando, or was that just something he did on his own?
So my brother moved with his mom and stepdad down after he graduated elementary school.
Okay.
They moved down to the Stewart, Florida area. So he went to high school there and was there for, I think, like 15-ish years before he made the jump to HSI, where he was up in New Jersey for like 4 or 5 years, and then finally got back to Florida. So he's down there now.
All right.
Doing his thing. But he's loving that so far. But
As a Florida boy myself, anytime I hear that, I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
let's hear more about that.
my grandmother, my aunt lived down there, but I grew up in New Jersey. He grew up in New Jersey. Like, we've primarily been in New Jersey, but they moved down there for the last decade. He's been there since like 2000, 2001.
Nice. All right. And what about you, Zach?
I'm Zack Myers, or Recruit Myers, if you will. I'm from Wyoming, actually. But before that, or after that, excuse me, I also served 4 years in the Marine Corps. I was in the infantry, and then I actually hopped around a bit when I was going to college. So I did wildland firefighting, and then most recently, I actually worked for Michigan State Police before this, and I've always wanted to be a police officer. I did the military to also help get skills to make me a better police officer.
Okay.
And then, moving from Michigan, moved out here, looked around, saw that Adams County still gets after it, and that's what I wanted to do. So
All right. Yeah.
that's why.
Where in Michigan were you?
Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Yeah, my wife, she had a residency in Grand Rapids. She's a pediatrician.
Nice.
So that's what we were doing out there.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. I was not a trooper. I was a motor carrier, so semi-trucks and all the commercial vehicle stuff.
Gotcha.
So we're not certified, so that's why I'm doing the academy again.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're doing like inspections and
Yeah,
log checks
still,
and things like that?
but it's different in Michigan because like out here, I know there's the port of entry and all that. We actually still patrol. We have our own. We still get the car with the sweet bubble on top.
Oh, that's cool.
And carry our guns and stuff.
And I totally missed a great opportunity. I should have just showed you, like, where in Michigan should have showed you the hand.
See, I'm not
All right.
from Michigan, so I
Okay.
choose to not do that.
You don't do the hand. All right, that's cool.
I'm just like you guys, basically rectangle.
Yeah, big square.
Square rectangle.
Easy shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for both of you guys, you kind of alluded to it, but what kind of led you whether it's family background or was there anything specific that were like, all right, cool. Like, I think law enforcement is where my passion might be.
For me, it was just growing up. You play war, which gets people to join the military, but it was also cops and robbers.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching like Westerns and classic movies like that. So it was always kind of the good versus evil thing.
Yeah.
And that just kind of kept me down that path of like, I would like to be a police officer one day. That is where I want to go with my career.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's more of after the military where it's like a macro of trying to make things better.
Yeah.
It's more, that microscopic or just trying to make where I'm at a better place, even if it's like 0.0001%, making it better than when I got there.
Yeah.
just for like myself, other people, my family, things like that.
There you go. The like little kind of scouts thing. Try to leave things a little bit better than you
Yep.
found them,
Mhm.
kind of thing. Leave your fingerprint on. That's awesome. So you both mentioned the academy, and you're going through the academy process. And so, just a little background for the listeners and viewers. So in Colorado, the Post Academy is 22 weeks long, and it's academics, curriculum, it's scenario-based training, it's skills, pretty much everything you need to go into a enforcement setting, and that you'll need. And then, of course, you go through your secondary educational career with the on-the-job FTO experience and things like that. So just kind of frame it up. So out of those 22 weeks, where are you guys at right now?
This is week 13.
right?
13.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much,
We're on the downhill side.
yeah, you're on the
Yeah.
other side. That's cool. So what did you do to prepare yourself for entering into a police academy?
So I would say we're both fairly fortunate for this. We got to do the pre-academy for
Mhm.
me from the start in September, like basically the first week of October through the end of December. So we got to be up at Flatrock, actually going down to like the divisions,
Mhm.
sitting at court, shadowing court deputies. I got to sit in on a few autopsies. I was
Okay.
fortunate enough to do that. So I got to see a lot of like what goes on, learning about different aspects of CRS before actually getting to the academy. So
Gotcha.
I think that really helped.
So a little bit, not slower pace, but kind of, you're not being constantly, moving through the faster pace of an academy.
Mhm.
You're actually able to ask questions, get immersed in what's going on and what you're
Right.
being exposed to.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
That's awesome.
There was a lot more time to actually, hey, we don't kind of understand what that specific thing is. Well, okay, well, we have the time. We can go through it, actually really explain it, and then get that understanding before actually going into the academy and having to drink from that fire hose, as they say.
Yeah. And with that experience, we're able to kind of, meet kind of, leaders in that area. So whether it's, the medical examiners, or whether it's some of our more seasoned detectives, or even some of the, district attorneys, things like that, you're able to kind of ask questions to better prepare yourself when you, it's one thing to sit and like, okay, let's do a report writing class and know what that's like. But it's another thing to be like, oh, here's why a good thorough report is important. The ramifications, of how many eyeballs are going to see that
Mhm.
report after you submit it.
Absolutely.
So seeing that at the very beginning as opposed to at the end is huge, I would imagine.
So one of those during those round robin weeks we got to do, we got to shadow some of like the DAs that do like traffic court,
Mhm.
and I actually got to sit with like the chief of the traffic court.
Okay.
I think her name's Sarah, and she actually like brought up different citations. Like we don't know actually what's going on until we actually look at the citation. So on the back of the citation, if you don't write anything, all I've got is, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
So maybe it gets dismissed because I don't actually know what's going on. Or if you write, it's basically another police report. If you write something well enough, then I can, I have an idea of what's happening, and we can go from there and work with it. But
Yeah. And that's important too, because you're not just issuing a citation as a form of, punishment or something for an infraction, but also there may be a victim that's associated with that
Mhm.
citation, whether it's from an accident or who knows. So you want to make sure that that person's receiving their proper justice as well on the
Mhm.
back end. So no, that's a great point. Were you part of the pre-academy as well?
I was part of the pre-academy. I was actually working as DS first.
Okay.
And so I was, when the pre-academy started, I was almost certified. So what they did for me is I started, I think, a
Yeah, I
week
think
or
it- I
2
think it was
weeks
like
later, something
at
like
most
that.
two.
Yeah, than everyone else, so they could at least get me signed off.
Gotcha.
So I got to experience the DS side of the jail, which was
And a DS, so that's a detention specialist,
Yes,
where
yes.
you're working a housing unit, but you're not on the floor with
Right.
direct contact. You're still overseeing and essentially the control tower of this large housing unit, but you aren't face to face until you get certified.
right. Yeah, and it was definitely eye opening because I'd never done that before.
Yeah, it's a different world.
Different, very. But then I was able to join these guys right when that round robin started. So it was we did immediately went right back to the jail. That's where our team started first, and then we did ride-alongs, and then courts, records, AdCom. Kind of got to bounce around, and it was similar. I didn't sit with the chief, but we had some of the like junior DAs who were like, "Yeah, see, this is what we get on the back. There's nothing, so this is bad. So probably will be dismissed or whatever." So it really did help with that report writing aspect
Yeah.
when we got to that part of the pre-academy. Like, this is where they all tie in.
Awesome. Yeah. Cause as soon as you hit, you hit submit, then your supervisor has to review it. Then it goes to a detective. Then it goes, once a case gets filed, then it goes to the DAs that, intake DAs and further DAs and judge, juries, and probation. Everybody down the line years later are still going to be reviewing that report. So you want to make sure you get it right the first time. So that's awesome. You guys got that exposure because I mean, I didn't, and I know it's a fairly new process we began for our new hires. And I mean, what an amazing idea. So I'm really happy to hear you guys got that experience and it's going to make things make sense more through the academy process as well, I would imagine. So that kind of the mental side. So, you guys are probably as prepared as you possibly can be stepping into the police academy. Now, what about on the like personal or family side? Now, granted, I'd imagine with the military experience, it's not a huge, hurdle to overcome, but for some people it might be just the family adjustment and things like that into this career field.
Yeah. Fortunately, right, I did an academy in Michigan. It was 23 weeks, but there you stay at the academy because it is for the state. So Sunday night through Friday, you're at the academy. So it was actually pretty easy to just transition and tell my wife, like, hey, this is what's going on, but I get to come home every night.
I'll be home every night for dinner.
So that was, that made it a lot easier for us to transition. And then just to also be ready was trying to stay in shape, try to continue to eat healthy. Having those hobbies outside of the academy already established really helps, like you just decompress. So that's kind of just what I did for myself.
Smart. Sounds awesome.
And then for me, my wife and I were together while I was still in the military for a little bit. So it wasn't a huge shock if like, hey, I'm going to be home a little later than we might expect. There's been times where it was like, hey, I showed up to work in the Marines and I got to go over here for I don't know how long and I can't talk about it and I can't, leave. So it wasn't like a shock to the system. It's something that's we experienced beforehand. So this is not as bad, I would say.
Nice.
Yeah.
So coming from the background of your upbringing and then military experience and then transitioning to a law enforcement career field, what skills do you think are most important for somebody getting into an academy experience than into a law enforcement career? Because there's definitely different skill sets and mindsets you should probably have, right?
I would say first and foremost, the number one thing that I think translates between the military going into the academy is like that discipline aspect and like the attention to detail. Because it's definitely not the first time you'll hear discipline and attention to detail when you get to the academy.
Yeah.
If you've been in the military prior to that, it's probably actually going to be more frustrating to you when you see people not do those things because you're just like, it's ingrained into your soul at that point.
Yeah. I mean, he did more time than I did in the military, and I still find myself just like kind of grinding my teeth when I see things like, hey, you guys, if you just do this like they said to do it, we'll stop suffering and it's easier for everyone.
Yeah.
But we do have younger people there that don't have that experience to where like they're kind of learning how to be disciplined. So you got to also understand that as well.
And how do you think that discipline will translate into being a good, effective deputy?
I mean, I would say it's probably it's going to be like one of the top skills you might bring along just because, again, with like doing, investigative work or writing reports, just that, again, discipline, attention to detail is going to really help you out. I don't see how it could anyway be like a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll also help you be just more prompt with certain things. I mean, your punctuality, like for us, pretty good. And if you can just keep on that, it'll help with like getting your reports done on time. I understand having done reports, like I understand things do happen to where they will be late and it does happen, but it doesn't mean you forgot about it. You're just, other things are occurring and you still have that little bit of yourself is like, all right, I need to get this done. And you'll sit down, like you'll make the time to do it because like this has to be done. That's where your discipline will come in.
Being able to juggle things, I think, more effectively. Just, hey, I'm sure you've had prior experience with having to, manage X amount of people for certain things. And that's just like, all right, I need you and you to go do this. Well, I have to manage that and have them go do this and then do that. And like that split attention and being able to actually handle all of that while getting the necessary paperwork done is going to be
and make sure it's all done
invaluable.
Properly. And,
right.
And whether it's military background or just coming into this work from another career or college, what may have led somebody here, I think you hit a huge point. Is the discipline is huge, because even when you first respond to a call for service, is just your safety, the person's safety who you're going to interact with, and from there, that way you have as best of an outcome and as safe an outcome as you possibly can. Granted, everything's different, but I think having that mindset of your self discipline, and then your discipline to your duty and your job, and to safety and then detail. So I think that's a key thing. So yeah, I think you guys are on an amazing track just with having that mindset. So I think that'd be huge for anybody listening who might be looking at this as a possible career change or something to get into, is to start honing in on that and just finding ways to sharpen that skill set themselves. I appreciate that. Now, how are you planning on keeping your edge and your mental focus and stuff as you start doing shift work and long nights? Like, do you have any kind of tips and tricks you're bringing with you, or is there stuff that you've kind of, even through the academy process, have thought you might want to incorporate?
My MOS, I was a crew chief, so my life revolved around a flight schedule.
Okay.
So the CO puts out the flight schedule, like, hey, these guys are going to fly and do this training mission at this time, and that's your appointed place of duty. So, I worked days and nights throughout my time in the Marine Corps, mostly nights. So I have experience, having to, at the drop of a dime, having to like change shifts. Okay. Even if I had one time when I was a really young guy in the Marine Corps where I showed up for night crew, and they're like, we need you to be on the test schedule tomorrow, so you have to go home. So I just had gotten up, right? And I was ready to work a night shift for, 10, 11, 12 hours, however long it's going to be. And they're like, okay, you need to go home and be here tomorrow at like 05:30. So I have that experience and like that, decade-ish of having a flap between that. So that's definitely going to come in handy, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Mine, I would say, is similar. Just being in the infantry, things change constantly. So you're kind of always, you're trying to get some sleep whenever you can, because things are going to change. So you just take like micro naps and everything. How will that translate? Like, again, being fortunate enough to have done some police work before this, I am pretty used to just that swing schedules or shifting schedules around. My wife's used to it at this point, to where she understands, because she, as a doctor too, she deals with it. So her and I already have like an understanding of how it all works. So I've been fortunate. But for like the discipline aspect of it, to maintain that, for me, it's just, I'm kind of one of the guys who it's just hey, it just has to be done. Yeah. Like, so you're just going to adapt because you have to.
Yeah. And you find those tricks. I mean, I know we celebrated Christmas on, December 23rd or 27th or, whatever. You just kind of shift things as you can, and hopefully, everybody's able to accommodate, or they just miss you for a certain cycle of different things or family events. So, all right. So what do your families think about transitioning to law enforcement? I mean, are you guys supportive, or are you getting a lot of questions and out of your friends and family and things like that?
My wife is supportive, but always worried. Just always. She has been since I started. Yeah. Same with, even when I was doing firefighting, she was always like, yeah, it's great that you do that, but be safe all the time and just make sure you come home, and the typical stuff. But very supportive.
Good.
I'm sure my wife is worried too, but she's definitely supportive. She's gone out and told me that, like, between going to school and then actually starting this like career path, that she has seen a change in me, like being brighter, like more engaged. Like it's changed. She said it's changed my personality for the better. Where like I was not necessarily all in with the school aspect, but now that I'm in this process, it's been good for you.
Yeah. Well, good. So we'll kind of go back to kind of the present setting. So how's the academy experience been so far?
It's an academy.
You're second one. You're round two.
It's been good. I think we have a pretty solid class, to where everybody, for the most part, everyone's getting along. Everybody helps everybody. Good. I mean, we just talked about it. We just got OC'd. Yeah. That's always rough.
Yeah, and it's important for people to know too, because this might not be widely known, that besides a firearm, but anything else we utilize as a tool or resource, we get exposed to. So, we get a sense of how it's going to impact whoever that we use it on. So you guys got sprayed and then you had to do a certain amount of tasks through that. So you know what that feels like, but you still have to continue on with your duty. And then taser day will come up where you get exposed to just kind of the use force of electronic devices.
Right.
We go through all the hands-on skills training, arrest control, so we can try to detain somebody safely for ourselves and for them. So for people to know that, when you guys talk about, when we have to testify about something, we're coming from just firsthand experience. I know what this is like, and I know what they are going through. To a certain extent, everybody's a little different, but so that's the reasoning behind that. And a lot of fun pictures and stories usually come out of that.
Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, it's been good. I would say, it hasn't been, I think people fear the idea of the academy more than they should.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you've not done it before or you're new to it or anything like that, you don't know what you don't know. And once you kind of go through it, you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. I can do this. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Or, I mean, some people, they may think it's worse, but once you're in it, you realize, oh, I can totally do this.
And you guys both survived a boot camp, and then you went through academy round 1 and round 2.
Yeah.
So, okay. So old hat. What's been your favorite experience so far that you've experienced just through this time? Is there something you've been exposed to? You're like, oh, that was really cool, or that you didn't think would be as interesting?
I personally like doing the firearms. The academic portion, I would say, is it is what it is. It's academic. You got to learn what you got to learn. Not terrible. I wouldn't call it necessarily fun. Arrest control is, getting handcuffed and dragged around and stuff. So that's not necessarily the most fun, but definitely getting to shoot guns with your friends is awesome. Always.
Yeah.
I enjoyed our day. We had a day a couple weeks ago around the drive track where we were making traffic stops.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good because you grouped up with a few people and you got to see how people would make traffic stops. Yeah. And then what were the calls in the car or on the vehicle? They had certain scenarios. So it just showed how adaptable you have to be. And having not dealt with some of those calls before, it was totally new for me. I didn't deal with DV because you don't really see that in semi trucks most of the time.
Right.
So it was like, oh, I got to figure this out. So it was really eye-opening for me as well. But it was good. I think that as much as I love firearms, I think that day really gave me a good experience to be prepared for all this stuff.
Exactly. And I think, and then you touch on another great point too, for people who just aren't exposed to this lifestyle, this career is, sometimes there's like a negative connotations where like, oh, that officer was so mean when he came to give me my ticket, or, but they don't realize like that's what's running through our head is almost as you're approaching a car, you're just going through the Rolodex of worst case scenarios. And then from there, once we make contact and we start going, then we can start going through the layers of, okay, no threat, I'm scanning. And then you can kind of start easing off on the approach if that's what the situation calls for. But so, I try to share that with people too, is like, we have no idea what we're walking up to. When we go to make that contact.
Right.
So yeah, it could be anything from a domestic violence situation inside the car. It could be somebody who just, robbed a bank and, who knows, or it could be, a sweet, person who's just on their way driving. We don't know as we're approaching. So, so, and that's a great that, we're able to switch it up through scenarios and role playing and things like that to expose you guys to that in a controlled environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I like that they also let us be backup for our partner.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So they would, if they called for backup, they would get one of you guys out. So then you also got to be that cover person.
Yeah.
Or cover officer, and then see what your tactics would be doing that as well. So I thought that was a good day.
Yeah. And the great thing too, is you go throughout your career, you're constantly sharpening that, that knife or that axe to stay sharp. Cause you're just roll through things with your shifts and with your shift mates, and just, you can kind of debrief stuff or, hey, how could I do better? So that was always something I always wanted to make sure I was on top of my game. So I would get that feedback from others who were either on a stop with me or on a call with me. So it's great that you guys are already doing that. Now, anything funny come out of that where you're just like, what?
So for some reason, during that day, I was a group of 3,
Okay.
but I got all the hard ones. So
So every time you're like,
all my
"Oh."
we would swap through it, and like my 2 partners, they were like compliant. Like, hey, it's a scared teenager, compliant, did whatever you asked him.
Yeah.
The other guy's like, there's a regular traffic, there's like a traffic stop where the guy was like, all right, here's my stuff, and then perfectly compliant. And then I had one where it was like DUI guy hanging out the driver's side with like alcoholic beverages. And then I got the DV situation.
Yeah, okay.
And then so I called for a second, and my partner shows up, and I'm talking to the driver, and I'm doing my thing, and then my partner's like pulling somebody out of the car, and I was like, oh snap.
Yeah. Oh, why do I always get the tough one?
Yeah, that's funny.
All right. So thinking about kind of because you mentioned you kind of work in study groups and teams, and when we go through scenarios, granted those switch up to the academy, but what's a fun fact about you or something from your background that you've brought to kind of like your team that might be different from others?
I would say the motivation,
Okay.
not even necessarily like fake it till you make it, but I know from my experience in the Marine Corps, there's a lot of, if you don't do your job, you have this higher standard. So if you meet that standard, even though it's exceptionally high, all you're going to get is like, you did your job.
Yeah.
The second you get like just below that, you're terrible. You're not good at your job, this and that. So I always like to bring that like small bit of sunshine into it. Like, hey, I'm proud of you. I believe in you.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Cause I know for a fact that like, even though we're all trying to perform at this level, the second you slip there, it's always somebody's going to make sure that you're not doing your job, even though you did X amount of things right up here.
Yeah.
And so I always try to like give you that little bit of reinforcement just so you don't spend the whole time like, I'm terrible. I can't do this. I can't do that.
Yeah.
And there's a whole list of things that you did awesome.
Exactly. And it's good to keep that perspective because you still need to keep your head in the game for the next call or for the next traffic stop or whatever may come. So yeah, if something doesn't go right, you can't just be sitting there down in the dumps about it. You have to, find that sunshine or that building block to learn for the next one.
Yeah, I would actually say I've noticed myself doing the same thing to my team because I was also a group of 3. And that's one of my partners. She would she really get down on herself, and it'd be something simple that she forgot to ask for, like insurance or something. It's like, it's okay. Like you're fine.
Yeah,
you're doing great. Did everything else right? Is that one thing? We'll get them on the next one. Just keep going. You don't need to worry about it because guess what? You can always go back and ask for it.
Yeah,
it's not the end of the world. Yes, you want to be in and out of your car as least amount of times as possible, but if you have to do it, you can.
That's cool. And that's something that I'm sure you guys will stick with you as you travel throughout your career. So you mentioned your favorite things you've done. Is there anything besides graduation that you can't do that one? That's off the table. Is there anything that you're most looking forward to for your other 11 weeks of the academy?
Well, next week we start our round robins. I've got firearms next week, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm with Jimenez. That's my favorite class, I think, so far. But again, military, previous law enforcement. I've just loved shooting guns my whole life. So
you haven't done any of the firearm skills yet? Like in your rotations?
Oh, we've been doing them every Tuesday and Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. That's why tonight. So we have the night shoot tonight. So I'm looking forward to that because that'll be good.
Yeah.
But further down the road, I'm just
just taking it as it comes.
This will sound somewhat poor, but I'm just ready for it to be done.
Yeah.
Like not even graduate, just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready to be on to phase 1, be it the jail or patrol. Like I'm just ready for that next step already. Because we've been, since we did the pre-academy, we've been here like 28 weeks now.
Yeah.
We're ready.
That makes sense. Yeah. You're just kind of chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned firearms too. And, things have evolved over time. So I know us as well as a lot of our other law enforcement agency partners, it's no longer just kind of stand, point and shoot, put some rounds on paper, and then on to the next thing. Like the training has evolved to be very dynamic, and we're pooling scenarios and trying to replicate them as best as possible from real calls, real situations, whether it's been us or another agency that have gone through, to expose you to as much as possible so you can already have that thought process in mind. as part of your tool belt as you go out there. So I mean, and is that something you've been exposed to already? Because I know it's coming if you haven't.
Yes,
Okay.
we've had a couple moving, like shooting and moving situations with a couple scenarios where you need to be assessing the targets and
Shooting
things like that.
cover and
Using cover.
Yeah, and identifying your target and being responsible for basically everything you do from the moment you unholster your weapon, right? So, and then being able to just incorporate that to where again you're trying to render a situation safe for yourself and everybody else around you. It's not just going out there with a certain mindset. It's our ultimate job when we show up is to handle a call for service or an emergency situation, render it safe, and use whatever degree is necessary. But then once it's over, it's over. And unfortunately, sometimes that does escalate ultimately to a lethal encounter. But that's not what we're looking for. But we need to be prepared for it just because you never know. Because that's one thing too is that the person we're contacting is going to dictate how that situation goes. Unlike a military standpoint where you've already here's the mission, here's what we're doing. So kind of have a little bit of a game plan. With us, we're completely reactionary. So it's a little bit a game changer, but it's good that you guys are already working in those scenarios, so you can just have that as an asset. Even as a new deputy, you're going to have that exposure. That's going to be huge, guys. And plus, it makes it more fun too. It's just not standing there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, awesome. I guess I'll ask. Do you have any favorite classes you've taken yet?
favorite classes.
Any favorite instructors that you may have had?
There's a couple, I think. So last week for me, the infantryman in me came out. We did building searches, just the PowerPoint. So I love that one. Just because
that's not what I teach.
That hit home. I liked the fire investigation one or arson. The arson class we had. That was really cool.
They brought a dog, so.
And then we had canines.
Can't beat the dogs.
They both. So we had canine. Time. We had the arson guy, and they had They both had their dogs.
Yeah.
Those were really cool. But I also liked the officer survival class we had. I think that really, for me, it just kind of reinforced some things. But then I think it opened other people's eyes. On what to be thinking about during all of this, because we talk about Cooper's color code. That's the conditions from white to black. We talk about it a lot. But I think that class really made people kind of realize, like, oh, these are where those would be applicable, or how I would apply them, and recognize what color I'm in, or what state of mind, I guess. Yeah.
And that recognition choose, so you can kind of get out of that and go back to a more where your field of vision opens up a little more, and you're processing instead of just kind of in a panic or tunnel vision kind of thing. Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad.
And then I would say, in addition to those, I like the area searches. We had the K9 unit come out and teach that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I got to put on a bite suit and
all right,
do some of that stuff.
I forgot about that.
Feel the little pinch, huh?
Yeah.
From our little land sharks.
Yep. The little fur missiles.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for you guys. Myself, and I know, a whole bunch of others will just be in and out and seeing what you guys are up to. So just, seeing the evolution of as your career's getting started or continuing, it's amazing having you here. And I know the people of Adams County and here in the Denver metro area are lucky to have you guys coming on board. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And for any of our viewers, listeners, you can follow all things Adams County Sheriff's Office on all of our social media platforms. And make sure you can find our podcast on anywhere you like downloading your podcasts, and subscribe, like, and check us out for our next upcoming episodes. And if you have any suggestions or questions, you can submit those to communityconnections@adcogov.org. So we might be able to answer some of your questions on our upcoming episodes. Until then, we'll see you next time.